Across the Desert is about a young girl named Jolene who is kind of enamored with an online person that she's met who likes to fly air gliders. And she sees through her friends who she only knows by Addie, or the desert aviator, that she has crashed somewhere in the Arizona desert. And Jolene tries to alert the authorities, but they don't listen to her. They don't think she knows what she's talking about. And she decides to go out on her own with only her opioid addicted mother's cell phone and a map to find her friend and rescue her. Well, she ends up stopping at a gas station for some supplies, and she meets a teenager who is kind of on her own journey. Her name is Marty. She's multicolored hair, kind of going through her own crisis. And Marty doesn't want to let Jolene go off into the desert on her own. She's really got a big heart, even though she's having some issues, and she decides to go with her. So this is a survival story, as well as a story about two young women who are trying to figure out what to do with their lives and how to make them better. So it's Across the Desert. Crashing in Love is a story about a young girl named Peyton who's kind of bummed about the upcoming summer. Her best friend Mary is going away for the summer, and one day as she's going to say goodbye to Mary, as she leaves, she comes across this boy, and I don't know why in this picture he's kind of standing up, but she actually comes across this like crumpled form in the road and discovers a boy who's been hit by a car in a hit and run. He ends up in a coma for many, many weeks, and Peyton feels this need to visit him, and she tells him all of these things, and she kind of works up into her mind who this young man is going to be, and she's hoping he will be the man of her dreams. But when he does wake up, reality kind of crashes in, and she realizes that not everything is always going to work out the way that she wants it to. So it's called Crashing in Love. Worst Case Colin is about a young man named Colin who has a lot of worries. He's always thinking that the worst is going to happen, especially now that he's 2 years away from the death of his mom. And he kind of keeps his journal that lists all the bad things that could possibly happen. And he's also dealing with his dad, who's struggling with his grief, and as a result is becoming this really manic hoarder. He just buys things all the time. Their house is filling up. Colin is not 100% sure what to do, and he's very worried that people are going to find out what's happening at home. He also is dealing with kind of a pretty nasty bully at school named Tyson. And this book is also written in verse. So if you like, I kind of think those are kind of quick reads about a young boy trying to figure out how to manage his life. That's called Worst Case Colin. And each of the different poems in here are kind of intermixed with some of his worst cases, bulleted lists of what could possibly happen if things don't go his way. 54 Things Wrong with Gwendolyn Rogers is about a young girl who doesn't see the world quite in the same way as other kids her age. And she ends up finding this kind of top secret report about her and discovers she doesn't really have one problem. She actually has 54 things wrong. And she decides to use her mom's 12-step program that she uses to remain sober as kind of a guide to try to fix herself, because she feels like there's all these things wrong with me. I must have to do things. And this is the story of her trying to fix herself and really more coming to the discovery that she's just different, and that's okay. And then the last fiction one I'm going to talk about today, this one is called The Cursed Carnival and Other Calamities. These are new stories about mythic heroes by all of your favorite young adult authors, including Rick Riordan. So if you are big fans of his Rick Riordan Presents series, he's got quite a few different ones, you will enjoy the stories in here. Now, some of the stories, it kind of is helpful if you've read the books themselves, but there are quite a few sprinkled in there that you don't have to have read anything else in order to enjoy. So if you like stories of folk and fantasy and fairy tales and myths, all of those kind of things, you'll enjoy Cursed Carnival. So it's a collection of short stories. All right, let's look at some of the graphic novels. This first one is a spooky one. It's called The Sleepover. And it's the story of the Russo family, particularly Matthew and his younger sister. Well, they come home from a vacation one day to discover that their nanny, Miss Pat, has passed away unexpectedly. And now their single mom is kind of in dire straits, not really sure what she's going to do for the care of Matthew and his sister. Matthew decides to kind of have a sleepover one night, watch scary movies, eat junk food before the new nanny begins. And her name is Miss Swan. And things at first seem great. She kind of lets them do whatever they'd like. But then strange things start to happen, and they realize there's more to Miss Swan than their mom sees, and it might not be a good thing. Doo-doo-doo. Black Sand Beach was another kind of in the horror ghost story genre that I've shared before, but number 2 has just come out. So in the first one, the kids think they've kind of discovered everything there is to discover at Black Sand Beach, and Dash, who is the main character, discovers a journal that somebody says, oh, I found this in the lighthouse where some of their scary adventures in the first one took place, and it turns out it's from the summer before. And Dash is like, well, that's crazy, I've never been to Black Sand Beach except for this year. But as they read the journal, they realize that there's more to their story, and the horror is not over yet. Just Roll With It is about a young girl named Maggie who's just starting middle school and kind of struggles a little bit. She has a lot of anxiety. She actually deals with OCD, so she has some behaviors that she really doesn't have a lot of control over, but she's really into role-playing games, and she has this 20-sided dice that she likes to roll and use to help her make decisions about friends and bullies and activities that she should join and how to make the most of her middle school experience. So that's called Just Roll With It. If you like Smile and Guts and things like that, you probably will enjoy this. Bounce Back is a young girl named Liliko whose family is moving from Japan to America, and she's kind of stressed out about it. She doesn't have any friends in America. She's worried about the language barrier, but she does have this little spirit guide who looks a lot like her cat Nico, and she's trying to find some friends who are just into anime and manga as much as she is, in order to make new friends and to start a new life in America. So it's called Bounce Back. It's not written in the Japanese style, it's written in the American style, but if you like manga style comic books, you probably will enjoy it. I also have with me the Five Nights at Freddy's latest graphic novel, and this one is called The Fourth Closet. It really helps if you're familiar with the video game before you jump right into the books.